Welcome to Pivoting to Technology Adoption. I'm your host, Donna P. Mitchell, the Transformation Authority. Every week, I sit down with executives, strategists, and innovators to tackle the one problem no one's solving: why 70% of technology transformations fail. Let's pivot. My questions with the 70% failure rate with the AI adoption. And
Mhm.
it seems like things have kind of stayed the same as I look through the decades. It's not the technology. A lot of times it's the adoption and how they just went about bringing it into the mainstream or the need of the organization. Do you find that same pattern over the decades that you have been doing this, that there's always this communication or adoption issue or the people side of things? What do you think executives that are listening should be doing about that now?
Well, so that's where we love these innovative solutions, but most of these innovative solutions require behavior change. And when you're talking about adoption and consumers' real world experiences, they have their certain set behaviors that they've grown over their lifetimes that have been passed down to them by their parents and peers and friends. And when you are creating a solution that breaks behavior patterns, no one will accept it. So what you need to do is you need to look at how behaviors are changing ever so slightly and just get ahead of those, but not too far ahead. And so if you're requiring people to change behaviors, one of those is in the cryptocurrency space, for example, wallets. This idea, they use this name that everybody understands, this idea that I have this wallet in my purse or my back pocket, but then they come up with this digital version of this, and I'm trading coins, and I've got a myriad of different currencies moving through this. You just lost everybody. Like there's a very few, very small subset that can understand that electronic wallet in a cryptocurrency space. What you did in effect was ask them to make a major behavior change. They're not going to. So if you're not doing something that's in alignment with their current behaviors, you won't have adoption. I don't care how beautiful your technology is. I'm going to let AI run all of my marketing. That would be a mistake. You have a problem with AI that most people aren't really recognizing. It's a sociopath. It has no understanding of right and wrong. It does not know the difference between right and wrong. And it will just spout out whatever the models have fed it, whatever interpretation it has made based on those models. If those models were flawed because they were biased, if they were biased in a particular direction, if they were
Mm-hmm.
biased away from a particular direction, you're going to end up with a sociopath that is blindly following that model, and you won't know it until it's made a massive mistake on your behalf. So adopting this as my marketing tool, mistake. Adopting this to help me evaluate my success metrics in marketing, wonderful. Adopting it to help me maybe make a more efficient process in a particular lane in my company, perhaps logistics, amazing. Letting it control my logistics, silly. Having it work on how it might help me secure my digital borders into my company, wonderful. Having it make decisions on its own as to how it's going to actually protect you on a real-time basis, silly. You've got to have oversight. And this is the mistake that a lot of people are making in my experience is they're looking at their operational teams of humans and they're saying, I can replace that whole team with something that thinks faster, moves faster, called an AI. But the benefit of the human team is you get differing opinions. And then you have leadership and command structure that will evaluate those opinions based on their seasoning, decades worth of seasoning. And occasionally they will make mistakes, of course, but they're able to real time respond to those mistakes and change those because they can leverage their team for new
So,
ideas.
what about audit and compliance? Has there been a lot of development on the audit side as you implement these AI systems? I mean, is that something that's still new right now? Like, it sounds like it's just totally missing to me. I'm meeting a few people who are in the governance space, and there's a few people that are starting in the audit space. But it seems like the audit and compliance, but I've been in industries where you had a lot of regulation, whether it was telecom, aviation, airline, pharmaceutical. I mean, that's just my world. I automatically start thinking, okay, I say, what are the rules? What are the policies? Where are we supposed to be? So, so I'm not seeing that, I think, with some of the companies that are implementing AI consultants where they have, let's develop these teams and let's do this, like you're saying. So are you aware, or can you share like where that is right now? Or like, is it coming? Audit and compliance for
Yeah,
AI?
it's starting to come. What we're doing is we're trying to build the regulatory rules in. And so instead of letting the AI interpret those regulatory rules and then see how they might layer across whatever purview it has at that moment, is to not necessarily model those in, but actually create checks and balances, almost
Mm-hmm.
as if it were a third-party engine that's been built on top of it that says, yeah, this decision that you just made, unfortunately, when I did the check across our compliance and regulatory actions, it doesn't work.
About the executives that you talk to, what are they really missing? Why do so many enterprises fail? That was my question.
So, yes, that's a great question, Donna. So, there is a gap between what the AI can do and like what the industry is needing here, right? So, on one side, AI has like so much potential that it could automate everything that we look at, right? Your everyday tasks, when you take like an insurance platform, even from the taking the submissions, right? It's taking like, hey, there is a customer who's waiting here to give you some details and he wants a quote, right? From that, like from an underwriting decision to actuarial decisions to making yourself like whether this risk is nice enough, whether this risk is, we have this appetite for this risk to be insured,
Mm-hmm.
and taking all these decisions, right? So everything can be automated, but there is a regulatory compliance that we are bound to, right? So we cannot just like take a open AI or like open model and then deploy it and like expose all the customer data, and
Right.
we cannot like leverage that, right? There should be some kind of like governance around it. So if there is some governance around it, if we know like what kind of leverage that we're going to use from this AI to this enterprise, let's say insurance or banking or any regulatory compliant industry, we have to have that governance model structured out first. So we have to have that governance model structured out in one place, and then we take this LLMs and large scale models and small scale models, and then deploy in that governance model without having the risk of exposing any of the customer's data, any of the private data to the open network or like to the open internet, right? So that's how the governance is going to play a key role in determining how we are going to use this AI to scale up all our manual processes. So that's my take on it. There is like a lot of other nuances that we have to consider, but I think the key player is the governance, right? So if you are taking a key decision, a strategic decision about the governance, then everything else comes into place in a regulatory compliant industries.
My other side of the coin tells me that a lot of the problems could be on the people side, or from your perspective, are companies really prepared for AI technology implementation, the innovation that's taking place as fast as it's taking place? Are their companies really ready? Or what kind of conversation should we be having to help get them ready?
So that this is another great perspective to look at, right? So when you look at like all these industries, you have so much of experience that is there. Like for example, if you are looking at an underwriting department, if you're looking at an actuarial department, there are people who have spent like almost 20, 30 years in that department, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they are taking those decisions today. If the underwriting taking a decision, if the actuarial person is taking a decision, they have spent their entire life looking at these risks, what we can insure, what kind of underwriting decision we need to make, and how much premium are we going to charge for this customer. All these are in their heads, right? And versus you are hiring new folks now, right? So who are in the age of AI. So when they come into this industry and when they think like, hey, I'm going to type in these data into this AI model, and then it's going to spit out the results for me, and then based on that, I'm going to go and like decide whether I'm able to insure this risk, I'm able to like provide this premium. I'm going to depend heavily on this AI model is the gap there, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
have to leverage this experience. We have to base out our model to have this experience, right? This 30 years of experience should be there in that model, right? And then that model should train all these folks who are like new, right? So it's not like a replacement. AI is not going to replace these 30 years of experience, right?
So, lastly, as a product leader, what words of wisdom do you want to leave the executives that are listening as we go forward in this 2026 year of AI adoption? There's a lot of emerging technologies taking place, and I'm sure you have some words of wisdom. What do they need to know? What should they be expecting? What do you want to share that they need to hold on to and take away?
Yeah. So what I would um, hold on to from an executive standpoint is that like we have to invest in AI now so that like we can see the return on investment in future. There is certain areas which are like not very tangible at this point, which is like understandable. You are a lot of people are making that investment right now. So we have to go with an open mindset to see where the potential for all these manual processes can be eliminated, where we can add a lot of efficiency, and how we could leverage AI to gain these efficiencies. That's the mindset I want to go into like 2026, so that like I use AI, I invest in AI, and then I see the efficiency gain by end of 2026 or 2027, and then I will be like in a good direction to make more investments, so that like I've realized some return on investment on the investment that I made in the AI tools, right? So executives need to make the decision now because AI is already here, as you all know, and they have to take an informed decision on like how to group together a governance model and like how to implement AI today so that like they can see the ROI sooner.
Well, with that said, I mean, you mentioned to me a little bit before about, coding, no coding. You're developing platforms, helping out in communities. Can you give us some additional insight and paint a picture on what that really means today? Because some people that are listening are really just catching up in the AI space and what's happening in development and financing for businesses today.
Certainly. No, there's been a seismic shift in and around platform development. And keep in mind, that's not my wheelhouse. I am a commercial banker by trade. That's been my career. But as anybody else, especially if you have a couple of decades in a field, you see challenges and obstacles, and you know there has to be a better way to solve these challenges, more efficiency. And so where this AI coding is today, I had an idea on how to solve a pretty basic challenge in commercial lending, and that's collecting financial statements from the borrowers, taking those financial statements, putting them into the bank spreadsheets, testing the ratios and the covenants, doing annual reviews. All of this takes a lot of time, and successful lenders wind up then with these large portfolios that have to be managed. And so through automation, I knew there had to be a way to do it. Well, now with the invent of AI assisted coding, I partnered up with a software development agency that I had experience with previously, because I also work for a friend of mine who developed a platform, but they did it the old way. This platform was designed about 3 years ago, and AI assisted coding had not come onto the scene. And so this same agency today in late 2025, we were able to develop a program for a fraction of the cost that it was a year ago. And remember, it was back just before Thanksgiving, and we're about 80% done with the actual development of the platform. And Justin, the one of my co-founders and the principal of the development agency, said he had about 25 hours into our project, where just 12 months ago it would have been 125 hours of work. And so this has just brought down the cost to develop these solutions. And it's wild, because we'll get on a video call. He will have his monitors, he'll share his monitors, and he's actually kind of narrative. He's stroking a narrative into a program, telling the program what we want our platform to do. It's asks a few questions, he answers those questions, and it spits out code. He literally, clicks and copies and then pastes into our platform this code, runs the code. We can see the changes live happening, on the screen. If it's not right, he then, keystrokes again, tells the program, no, it needs to do this. New code gets developed, gets dropped in. Or if there's an error, Justin can just, highlight, do a quick screen grab of the error, drop it in the platform, and then it gets resolved. And then he drops in new coding. And so he calls it vibe coding. And it's a hoot. Half the time
I was just getting ready to ask you if that's vibe coding, because that's what I've kind of heard recently and learned about vibe coding.
Yeah, so that's what they've been.
So, with your experience, when you see companies moving into technology adoption, and you've been in the banking, commercial development, small, large, and so many major projects, what patterns do you see for why there seems to be a failure rate in the whole execution process? Why is there so much money being lost? I've been trying to really nail that piece down, because once you tell us why the money's being lost, I'm interested in you saying, what should the executives be talking about in the boardroom? Who's supposed to be in there? Do they build their own team in C-suite? What should they be doing? And how should it happen?
Well, I've got a perfect example for that. So when I was at Craft 3 is the name of the CDFI I worked for in Oregon, in Washington. I was part of the C-suite, and my role at one point was trying to improve the commercial lending process. So we were looking at various ways to streamline that front end, what would be called the workflow on how information is recorded, how we actually deliver information from one person to the next internally, the steps going through to approve a loan. And we looked at, I want to say we had 3 demos of products, and this would have been back 2012 maybe, so quite some time ago. And there was technology out there to solve these things. We had 3 demos. The really nice package was way too expensive. There's just no way we could touch it. So we went with our second pitch. And in the end, we spent a few $100,000 and never got what we really wanted to. We actually pulled out of the contract about 3/4 of the way in. And I would say the reason for that was misunderstanding of what we needed as a solution. I think we're part to blame, or I'm part to blame. I think they are part to blame. Maybe 1/3 me, 2/3 them. And a lot of that comes from when you're talking to the technology solution. You're talking to a salesperson. Their goal is to close that sale. That's very different than the team of experts, the technologists who actually build the solution or have the technical expertise for that onboarding process. And usually in onboarding, there has to be some tweaks to customize to make it fit, because in lending, banks are all different. There's a lot of similarities, but all banks do a few things a little differently, and especially in the CDFI world. And we just couldn't get them to make their platform work for us and deliver the product that the sales guys sold us on. And so we got to a point where we had to cancel the contract. So my advice to especially the C-suite people who are overseeing either the selection process or the people making the decision on that selection process is, it's great to talk to the salespeople, but before you make a decision, you need to get past that layer and have a solid conversation with the technologists, the tech folk who are actually doing the platform, the integration, and making sure that there's a common understanding of what the deliverable that you're seeking is and what they can actually produce.
So when you look at, going forward in the future, what trends do you see happening besides vibe coding? What do you see on the horizon? What is it that we missing that you already know about, since you on the finance side? It's like fintech. They already buying companies, at a whole bunch of money, and we still trying to figure it out. So what do you know that we don't know?
Well, one of the things I've talked a lot about, and this may be the other side of the coin of the question that you're asking on what's not coming. I have a very strong opinion that AI, in and of itself, will not replace commercial lenders. There is just too much, in my opinion, humanity that needs to go into making proper credit decisions than what AI today, and probably what AI will have, at least in the foreseeable future. On the consumer side, I think it's definitely here, and it's just going to get more and faster, because it's on the consumer side, it's volume driven. It's much easier. What's your credit score? What's your debt to income score? If you meet the thresholds, boom, you're in. It's a much more binary process. In commercial lending, it just isn't. There has to be this ability to have belief in that business owner's ability to execute the business plan. People don't borrow money just to borrow money. They borrow money because they have a plan, and they need to then execute that plan. The results are never exactly what's expected. So you have to, as a commercial lender, develop this skill in assessing that person's ability to figure it out. Fake it until you make it, as is, a pretty common saying. And I think that applies definitely in commercial lending and entrepreneurialism. I think where we'll see AI deployed even more heavily tomorrow than it is today is in and around fraud prevention.
Okay.
AI is excellent at pattern detection. We are creatures of habit. We just are. So with AI, I think we should be able, in the financial arena and also as business owners, expect fewer losses, just because there are faster safeguards. It's not unusual, and it happens probably once or twice a year for me, that one of my credit card companies will contact me and say, we and now it's a text, right? But there's this transaction. Is this really you? And it's coming from their fraud detection department. It's like, yeah, no, that's not me, or yeah, that is me. That's just going to get, I think, smarter and better. The scary part is the bad guys, they're using AI as well to get past those, right? Because AI isn't good or bad. It's how we use it. And so hopefully the good guys stay ahead of the bad guys in that fraud detection. I also think for business owners, having the ability to have almost AI assisted financial coaching. Again, why I don't think AI replaces commercial lending is all commercial businesses are different. You know, you can look at, say, 10 plumbers, 10, plumbing contractors. All 10 of them, their business is going to look different. They engage in different types of projects. Their financial statements are going to be different. So AI to make a credit decision, I don't think can pick up on that. However, I foresee a time where probably through the bank, and this is part of the kind of the add-on, or what will the 2.0 version of our platform will be, is where the bank receives the financial information. It compares it to the history of the business, and then it can coach that business owner to be better.
Thank you for listening to Pivoting to Technology Adoption. If this episode gave you something to think about, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a colleague who needs to hear it. My new book, Pivoting to Technology Adoption, Mind the Gap, is available now on Amazon. Visit pivotingportal.com to work with me directly. I'm Donna P. Mitchell, the Transformation Authority. Until next time, mind the gap.